the inaugural podcast for the No Name guys. We have no name. It's myself, Adam Henry. We got Austin Johnson, Taylor Dewick, Tyler Doyle, Lucas Schultz, Brendan Wilson, and then we got Hugh Chenko over Skype. He's out in Toronto. Opening topic, first one ever. Dennis WIdeman in the news today. 20-game suspension was upheld by Gary Bettman. He got 20-game suspension, as we all know, for hitting the ref from behind. I don't know if it was intentional or whatnot. 20-game suspension. He ended up appealing it. It got upheld today by Gary Bettman. The reason why Gary Bettman upheld it, I don't know if you guys knew this, is that he actually subpoenaed Dennis WIdeman to get his text messages, or this is what I've read, to get his text messages. He read his text messages, and he found a text message sent from Dennis WIdeman to a teammate, and it said, I quote, "The only problem and the only reason I'm here is because the stupid refs and the stupid media." So,
wait, that's what Dennis WIdeman said?
So Dennis WIdeman texted that to his teammate.
So basically, he showed no remorse.
So yeah,
for what he did.
He showed no remorse. We'll open, just kind of let your ideas fly. I don't know. So let's start with first things first. The original suspension. My opinion, I don't know. I don't think it was intentional. I don't know what he was doing, but I don't know. Austin, Taylor, you want to?
You look at the hit. Obviously, he doesn't even look back to see who he hit. Obviously, it's intentional. Like the way he hit him, he didn't even care. There's no remorse.
Yeah, but he did just get hit pretty bad. He was kind of wobbly going to the bench. If you knock down a player and you got to the bench, would you turn around to look who it was, or would you just kind of lean over because you just got hit?
Who were they playing?
Like you probably thought it was a player.
I
can't remember.
I honestly don't even know. I don't even know. I don't know.
It could be important because if it was like LA, and this might sound stupid, but I mean if it was LA, it's black and white jersey.
I mean I don't know if this is a bad sign.
That's true. I guess
it was Anaheim.
I think so.
Well, that's what I mean because you're saying you look back.
Yeah, exactly.
At someone, right?
But right when he got to the bench, he bent over. If you see, he got to the bench and he lunged over.
If you haven't seen the play, basically he got railroaded.
I think that was you watching the video.
Hugh hasn't seen the hit in a while, so he has to watch the hit again.
All the way from Toronto.
But if you haven't, so he gets railroaded. I don't know if it wasn't a dirty hit or what, if it was, whatever. But he was clearly
woozy.
He was woozy, and I don't know how long he'd been on the ice. No one seemed to check, but he skates back to the bench. It looks like he doesn't even know he did it, in my opinion, but that's up for, like, Tyler, I don't know.
Well, did you, see, I don't know if he was calling for a change when he raised his stick and almost slammed it, but he was either angry that he got hit, so he slammed his stick, or he was calling for a change. Yeah. So he was clearly focused enough to do one of those two things. You don't do that for no reason at all. So.
And Hugh, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, you guys are right. That sound I made was me checking YouTube for that video. And it was the Nashville Predators, actually.
Oh, okay. So we were all wrong.
You know, I want to try and play devil's advocate for Wideman's side because, again, he's a guy that has, as far as I know, has never been suspended, and he's never really shown any malicious intent on the ice. But like some of you guys pointed out, he is staring at the bench. The lineman's in the way of the bench. He hits the linesman and then doesn't turn around to the linesman. So it's very tough to make the case that he doesn't know the linesman's there, which is pretty much his only case for not getting the 20 games. So I think Gary Bettman did the right idea by holding the suspension and kind of sending a message saying that, you know, I don't really care if this is your first offense or not. If you're going to do something that malicious and stupid, you're going to get a maximum fine. And apparently Wideman's lost over $500. He's going to lose over $500,000.
$700,000 is when it's all said and done. And I think a big thing on Bettman's side, erring on Bettman's side, is that he has to protect the referees because if you don't suspend them in this situation, then the referees are going to be pissed and there's a whole lot of falling. Brendan, I don't know what you think about that.
Well, yeah, you can't not suspend him for that, I think, just because if other players see this, they'll make the same excuse and they might do the exact same thing if they are frustrated with the refs. So, yes, it's a tough situation. It's hard to see a guy get suspended for 20 games, even if he did mean to do it.
That's a lot of games.
Like, it is a lot of games, but like, you just can't have players knocking down refs. And I think if he would have turned around and looked at the ref, I think he still would have been suspended, but definitely not 20 games. That's for sure.
Absolutely, I agree with you. If he had shown remorse, if he had hit the ref, turned around, looked at him, gone to the bench, kind of been aware of what he'd done, gone up to the ref, apologized, and then afterwards in the media, when they asked him about it, if he had simply said,
Yeah.
I was woozy, I was tired, I didn't see it coming, I didn't see him, instincts ran him over, I'm sorry, I hope he's okay. I honestly think if he had said that, there'd be honestly probably no suspension.
Well,
the fact that none of that happened.
He still would have been suspended.
some-
But then again,
But
okay,
not
think
very
about
much.
this. If he's, how does the situation completely change, or does it completely change if that's a player who's turned
It
around,
doesn't.
he
No
still comes up
suspension.
high.
Well, maybe
It would have been a
situation
lesser suspension,
changes.
though.
I
think it would've
honestly
been
don't
a
think there's a suspension at all.
No.
That's incidental contact, and that's part of the game. The only reason I think it is a
But a
suspension
ref
is
is
because
part of
it's-
the game surface, right?
They're
They're
not
not
part
in
of
the
the game
they're not in the
itself.
play, right?
That's a good question, but I think incidental contact, like as in hockey, you run into each other all the time. But I think honestly, I think if that's a player, that's incidental contact. He might have got a penalty for interference, but no
Oh, yeah,
penalty.
for sure.
I don't know. Hugh, you have something to add?
I think something the Flames should have done mid-game was take Wideman off the ice after the guys upstairs saw the hit. Take him off the ice. Take him into the dressing room. Even if you know he's not concussed, pretend you're looking at his concussion because that's going to make Wideman look a lot better. Because Wideman went out for his next shift, so
That's
you
true.
can't really use the fact that he's
big
concussed,
deal.
so he's good. He
Well,
didn't
yeah,
see
and
the guy.
then-
Blah blah blah. You can't really go that route because he went out for his next shift. So I think the Flames should have taken him back to take a look at him just in case. Because again, he's never had any history in that, so
That's
it
true.
seemed out of character.
I agree with that, but you're not thinking about that as a head coach, right? You're not going to be like, oh, is he going to be suspended for 20 games, right? Like,
No.
hey, he's
nothing.
in the game. He
But-
says he can go. You might as well get him back on the ice. He's one of your, what is he, top 4 defensemen on the team? Like, you can't just assume. Like, yes, the NHL spotters should have taken him off because he did look woozy, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the coach is there to win the game. The team's there to win the game, right? You're not going to
Look.
pull one of your defensemen.
Look, I totally get that, but you know what? It's not just the head coach that's there. There's all the guys upstairs that are working for the
Training.
Flames. They need to relay to Bob Hartley that he did that and he should be taken off the ice. I'm not saying it should be the coach's decision, but I mean the coach isn't the one that's totally in charge. The GM or the owner needs to say, Hartley, get him off the ice right now in the back, check him for concussion because he just hit over a linesman. So I think that sort of communication needs to happen between the front office guys and the head coach of the Flames.
I agree. I think that could also, that whole thing with the coaches not taking him out of the game and then using that as saying he could have a concussion, and that could open a whole other can of worms that this concussion protocol isn't working and what they're trying to, they're not actually using this concussion protocol that's supposed to be in place. But I don't know, Austin, you had something you wanted to add to that?
Well, the NHLPA is going to a neutral arbitrator. Do you think the suspension is going to be reduced? Because they're going to a neutral arbitrator.
How far is it in?
So what do you mean?
Like
Oh, the suspension. Oh, yeah.
How
I'm
far
not
is it
too
in
sure.
right now? Anyway, it was
Like,
20 games starting after the All-Star.
He must
break,
be 4 games in
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
far,
not
5, something like
Yeah,
that.
but so they are going to,
It's
try to
like-
get it,
let's-
right? So you don't think
Let's
it's going
ask
to
that,
get
like,
reduced
who
at all?
thinks it's
Taylor,
going
what
to
do
be
you think?
reduced? Like, how
It's
many hands? How many?
it's not going to be reduced at all. You look at the text message he sent. He's calling the refs stupid. He's calling the media. Like
I think
it's
Lucas
out
is-
there. It's
I think Lucas is the only one that thinks it's going to be reduced. Why?
I didn't
I-
see those texts
I
yet, to be
do.
fair, but
Well, I have it
what
quote
I know
unquote. The text is, and I find it amazing that he.
Why would you say
I don't think
that?
he used the word subpoenaed, but like he literally.
well, that's the legal term.
I don't
That's
think he
the-
used the word stupid either. If you catch my drift.
But that he could get and receive and be able to look at text messages from his phone. I didn't.
Well, and the whole text message thing, when Bettman released that in his 22-page
Yeah, or-
decision, whatever.
I read
I
it.
don't know. Yeah, you read the whole thing.
Yeah.
wow,
I didn't go that deep,
riveting
but
stuff. I'm sure
yeah.
Bettman's an exciting guy.
He looks a lot more exciting with a beard on.
But that he referred to it as he's not going to increase the suspension due to that. So I don't think he was looking at that as a asset to uphold the suspension. He looked at it as he's not going to increase the suspension because of it.
Oh, okay.
And like if you read the thing, it's in the last page, I think, of the 22-page or whatever statement that Bettman had. But yeah, he just said he's not going to increase it due to this text message.
But after they go to this arbitrator or mediator or whatever, it's them who makes the final decision, not Bettman, right? Because Bettman's the one who made this decision.
Correct.
I
So
think
who
it's
knows,
all coming
maybe the other person will have a different opinion on it.
It's
Like,
all coming
we
back
all
to the
we all
two
do
camera
that he should not
angles
get
for
20
sure.
games.
Because
And
that's
that's true,
that's the big telltale thing here is that everyone's arguing because of the two camera angles, right? The one that we keep seeing on TSN Sportsnet
bad one.
is the bad one,
Yeah.
right? But they showed it once. It's from that I don't know, those new
Yeah.
freaking cameras from around the ring. That's the one where it looks like really unassuming. So
Well, something also to keep in mind is that Don Henderson, actually, the linesman that got hit, went out with a suspension, with a concussion. So
He's still out.
he's still out. So I mean, you know how in sports, whenever there's an injury to another player caused by another player, sometimes the league will look at what the severity of the injury is to see how long that player stays out. I think they should do the same thing like they're doing with WIdeman, because I mean, Don Henderson needs to make money too. So when he's not collecting those game checks because he's out, that needs to be taken into consideration with the suspension for WIdeman, I think. And I think they're doing a good job with that.
Tyler, one more thing you want to add before we move on?
And by the time, this whole, with the arbitrators all said and done, it's going to be up to, probably 15 games at least by then. So it's already going to be almost 20 games by then. So really, they're just trying
But
to
he
make
might
a
actually
point
get
of it.
money back if they do
Yeah.
lose.
The fact of the matter,
true.
I think, of the matter
right.
is he lost a lot of money. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
he'll get some back, but he
That
made a bad decision or a mistake. But the way he handled
Whatever
the
it is,
situation, he's paying for it, and
Yeah.
I mean, he makes a lot of money. We can't feel too
The
bad.
Batmans will figure it out.
Yeah.
So moving on to our next topic, we're obviously based out of Winnipeg. Winnipeg Jets are
Horrendous.
horrendous, but they are in our hearts. We're huge Winnipeg Jets fans.
They are
Through,
fueled
at
by
least-
passion.
At least most of us are. Lucas, I know you have an odd affiliation with the Toronto Maple Leafs this year, unfortunately. But Andrew Ladd, been in the news a lot. He's been the captain for the Jets since they arrived. Big player for the team. He's been in the league for 10 years. He's played over 750 games. Got 2 Stanley Cups. Right now his cap hit is $4.4 million. He wants over $6 million. Gary Lawless has reported earlier in the year the team actually offered him $6 million
And he
for
turned
6
it
years,
down.
and he turned it down. And I find it hard to believe that he's going to get that anywhere in the league now. And I think if the Jets give him that, in my opinion, I think that's crazy. Do you think he's going to get traded? Do you think they're going to try to sign him? What's going to happen here? The deadline's on February 29th. Lots going to happen. Brendan, you want to start this one off?
What I'd love to see is him traded. I don't think. I don't know if he will get traded. I don't know if he is worth what he's asking. Personally, I don't want him to be back with the Jets at all. I think we have plenty of other captains, and there are so many other people in the league that are like Andrew Ladd. I don't think we're making the playoffs this year, so we don't need him. He's just another guy to me. Like he's good. He wanted a lot of money, but we have a lot of.
He's no longer unique. He's
Exactly.
replaceable, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
He's
You
like
can find someone that can do what he does
for
for
sure.
a lot less than $6 million, and I think that's the argument a lot of people. Taylor,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's the sentiment with everyone here. Everyone wants to see him go. Bit of news here that I guess Gary Lawless.
We hate to quote Gary Lawless too much. Let's be clear. Anything we report Gary Lawless is not fact.
Hopefully he never listens.
And
Next quarter will just be us ripping on him.
and, he's saying that Kevin Sheldayoff, he's looking to keep Andrew Ladd.
To add that, Gary Lawless did actually report within the last week that the Jets had put in another offer. He hasn't said what the offer is exactly, but that he's not actually trade bait yet. The Jets are more focused on trying to re-sign him, which I find hard to believe that he's saying that, but I just feel like Kevin Sheldayoff as a general manager would be making a huge mistake if he hasn't been answering phone calls and taking just conversations with other teams.
Well,
Like,
he's
good
probably
thing.
taking conversations and taking phone calls, but he's not on the
Actively
trading.
trying
So
to-
he's
he
not.
didn't say
He's
he's
not the one
available.
that's trying to trade.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Scoping it out.
Tyler,
Eiserman's kind of doing the same thing with Drouin.
That's
Drouin's sitting
Oh.
at home right now. Eiserman's in no rush to move him.
The only
It's a little bit different than at Ladd, obviously.
The only
with-
difference I have to agree but also disagree with that because Jonathan Drouin hasn't earned
Yeah.
anything in this league yet. He hasn't proven himself. He's played a handful of games, got a handful of points,
Yeah.
hasn't done really anything, hasn't really made a mark for himself. He was a high draft pick, but Andrew Ladd has won 2 Stanley Cups, has been a captain, has played for 3 teams. He's been in the league for 10 years. That's the difference.
Been a grinder.
If I'm Steve Yzerman, try not to get off topic here, but I'm Steve Yzerman. Jonathan Drouin doesn't deserve anything. Like Andrew Ladd, I think, we should want to trade him, but I don't think he should be treated like a piece of meat. He should be treated with respect. He's earned respect around the league. So
And it's
it's a delicate situation.
It's tough to trade your
Yeah.
captain. Like
Yeah,
you
it's
look
a
at a lot of
situation.
teams. Like I'm a big LA Kings fan, and Dustin Brown right now is playing on the 4th line.
Yeah.
He's making
$8 million a year or something like that.
I don't think it's that
No.
much. It's not that
No, it's not
ridiculous.
It's David Clarkson.
No, he signed a pretty big contract.
He did.
If someone
But,
could look
like-
that up quickly just to
Yeah.
see
Not 8
if anyone has their phone.
Yeah,
on.
but like, so him and
Nobody really jumped on that.
Come on.
All right, Tyler.
Hugh, you want to look up down for us?
I was
Yeah,
just gonna say, there's are situations where your captain can do more than score goals for you. I know Lad is not playing well. He's not. Was a first line player here for the first 3 years, I guess, when he was here, and now he's just clearly not cutting it. So I don't know if there's another role he can play.
Cheveldaev's banking hard on the fact that his value is as a locker room
His-
guy, right?
His salary, Brown's salary is $5.875 million.
Sorry, Hugh, do you have anything you want to add to this? I mean, do you want to leave
Well,
me hanging
just-
over on Skype there?
So I listen to you guys, but just quickly on Dustin Brown, he's not only under contract for just under $6 million, he's under contract until 2021-22. So that means he's got a lot of years making that money with the LA Kings.
Yeah.
I generally agree with what you guys have said about Andrew Ladd, because there's about 100 Andrew Ladds out there that can fill in and not be demanding $6 million. Chevy made the right decision as far as at least signing Byfuglien to a long-term deal first, giving us the idea that they might not keep Andrew Ladd. Whether he does or not, we're not sure, because there's only one Dustin Byfuglien out there when, like I said, there's plenty of Andrew Ladds. No, I just think that if we do decide to keep, if the Jets decide to keep Andrew Ladd long term, I just think that means we're not moving in the right direction, because we've had the same core group of guys for, obviously this is the 5th year with the Winnipeg Jets, and we've made the playoffs once and haven't won a playoff game. So it's tough to really make the case that Andrew Ladd should be signed long term, considering that the team's been under his leadership. So I think Chevy should look to trade him possibly to, I'm hearing, Florida, maybe back to Chicago, wherever he ends up going. I think that the Jets should trade him in order to try and rebuild this team.
Yeah, there's definitely trade rumors out there. We'll get to some more about what could happen on the trade market, but Taylor...
Well, that's what I kind of wanted to bring up too. Just what you noted on, Hugh, that Florida, Chicago, and also Pittsburgh looking...
Yeah.
They're big names out there. So
he's won a cup in Chicago. Dale Talon in Florida knows him as a player. Both those teams doing pretty good in the standings. Want to go on long playoffs. Chicago's got to be one of, if not the favorite, to win the cup. It's a big question mark to know what's going on in the room and who they want to trade for. That's something that we can't control, or we don't know what's going on. We don't know who. There's money involved in trades and stuff. It's such a difficult process that you can say who you think he could get in return, but it's really you wouldn't know. But just I want to add, last year at the trade deadline, 2 players that got moved and they were big bait at the deadline were Andre Sekera and Antoine Vermette, and they both were worth a first-round pick last year on the market. And you have to think Andrew Ladd is worth a little bit more considering he's won 2 cups. Last year, Chicago traded for Antoine Vermette, they won the cup. You have to know that there's teams that they know it works, bringing in a role guy like that, and I think if the Jets are going to do it, they're going to get something good for him. That's my opinion.
Honestly, if he does get traded, I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to come sign back in Winnipeg. He likes it here. His family likes it here, as far as I know. And I mean, if we could sign him at less than like a $5 million contract, I would be pretty happy with that. But like again, I think if he doesn't come back, I think we'll be more than okay. And I think we have multiple people that can take over the captaincy on our team.
Yeah, I think going to that angle, like Blake Wheeler this year has shown that he's game in and game out. He's a hardest working guy on the ice. He's a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve. In the dressing room, he says it how he feels. Like he lights a fire, and like everybody's, it's like he is the motor that runs his team. Like, and I think that's not been shown from Ladd all year. I think everyone would agree on that Ladd hasn't had that. Whether it's a surgery or all the trade rumors, and maybe there's something weighing on him. Maybe he's got something else going on.
But not having a contract, surgery,
especially Byfuglien getting signed, had to kind of
let
him know that he's probably going to get traded.
Funny about that is because I don't know if you guys saw that clip of when the coach announced that Byfuglien had signed his deal. The whole team cheering to go see Byfuglien. I was thinking the Ladd's probably there, probably happy for the guy, but at the same time thinking that's probably my ticket out the door. They don't have enough money to sign me for $6 million now. That's gotta be tough on the guys. So
I'm not worth $6 million a year.
Yeah, back to the finances on the Jets for 1 second. We're talking about reputable sources right from the very get-go. Gary Lawless, not so much. But I just got from the hockey news.
Sorry, Gary.
That Ladd is seeking a 6-year deal worth over $40 million. That's the first I've seen.
6.8, I think, is what the exact number might be.
That's add insult to injury.
All I know, but all I know is right now he's on our third line. That is too much for a third line.
And then you have to keep in mind, I don't know the numbers down to a T. I haven't researched this enough, but I'm pretty sure it's at the end of this year. Jacob Trouba and Mark Scheifele need to be re-signed. Those are two guys you want in your fold. Mark Scheifele has shown a ton this year.
Yeah.
Trouba hasn't had the best year, but he's 21 years old, and he is a guy with a ton of upside. You can't afford to lose those guys or piss those guys off by not giving them enough money because you've got money tied up in
and
guys
everyone in the room respects someone like Scheifele, especially. Yeah. So, like, if Ladd does go, Wheeler becomes captain, who's going to be another assistant captain. Well, you could honestly look at a guy like Scheifele or
Scheifele or Trouba. One of those young guys has got to be... And that's a thing, and I heard this, and this has been going around also, a big thing. And I heard this, I don't know if it was on the radio, 1290 this morning, the big show in the morning, whatever, they were saying, and I really agreed with this, is that tanking this year for the Jets and getting, like, first overall pick might not be the solution to our problems. I think the problems for the Jets, and it's 6 years in the league now, only one playoff run, like you said, not one playoff win. The culture clearly isn't a winning culture. There's been players coming in and out that we thought were going to make a difference, and yeah, they've played well, but we're still a losing hockey franchise, and things haven't changed. Like the GM, and there's been one coaching change, and we're losing a lot. And I think that they need to shake up the culture. And I think moving Andrew Ladd and bringing in a new captain, completely reshaping the culture, I think that would really benefit.
But, however, the first overall pick, Austin Matthews, will help a ton. You can't say it's not. I mean, he will help a ton. And it's not that you just need to rebuild, they need to retool. Because they did make the playoffs just last year.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think getting the first overall pick with what we have now will really help us out.
And so talking about Hugh, you have one last thing you want to add?
Well, just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Adam, with the whole culture change thing. I mean, remember last year when Sheldon traded Evander Kane? Remember what that did for the team? Like that totally rejuvenated the roster and put them through that playoff push. So, I mean, obviously we know that wasn't enough to make them a legit Stanley Cup contender, but
it made a difference, though. Yeah.
Changing the roster like that, like trading a big piece like Evander Kane, can make a positive influence on the team. So I think you're right. I think really changing the culture could change the fortunes of the Jets and hopefully make them a Stanley Cup contender.
I agree with you. And speaking of that trade they made, it was just over a year ago. It was a year ago to the date, I don't know, a week or two ago that trade happened. Biggest trade, biggest move Kevin Cheveldayoff's made is
only one of the
pretty much the only move. He's been pretty quiet. It's been 6 years. There hasn't been a whole lot of action. But I don't think anybody in Winnipeg is upset about getting rid of Evander Kane, which brings me to my next point. Evander Kane in the news this week goes up to Toronto to enjoy the NBA All-Star Game festivities. Clearly had a really good time. Missed practice the next day. Didn't show up. Interviewed today. He's in the news today, and he says something like, I don't know the quote of exactly what he said, but I think I show how much I care by how I play on the ice, and that was his argument. But I think Buffalo's getting a little bit of taste of what Winnipeg had to go through with Evander Kane. Bad attitude. Lives like a rock star, thinks that he's entitled to something. I'm not sure. I'll open this one up. I don't know, Austin. What do you think of Evander Kane?
I think he's ridiculous. yeah, you know what? I don't know. I mean, it's not the first time he's done it. I heard that he traveled to, I think it was the World Series, and he was able to make it back. But I don't know if he drank too much.
He took a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. He took a helicopter. I don't know if he drank much, but
for Toronto against whoever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not responsible. Like, you're a professional athlete. You have practice. Just show up to practice. And he actually called his coach. I guess he woke up late and called his coach and general manager.
After practice.
Yeah, no, after practice. Then he called them.
That's a little too late.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, I know one thing with Kane at the MTS or with the MTS Centers, people still wear Kane jerseys because he was a really popular guy. And
scored 30 goals.
You know, when other Jets have gotten traded so far, and I think if Ladd gets traded, people aren't going to cross out Ladd on their jerseys, right? With Evander Kane, like, he was just not a likable guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't fit here.
If you look at his history with the team, like, it was just absolutely
horrible.
It was absolutely awful. Like, from posting the Twitter pictures of Money Phone and Floyd Mayweather and this to not showing up to a game in a tracksuit. The whole tracksuit scandal was an absolute travesty. It just the list goes on. The stuff he did, he was just.
It's a travesty.
He was not what the Winnipeg Jets wanted to resemble Winnipeg. That's not what they were about, and that's obviously why he's not here anymore. Hugh, you have something to add?
Well, just to what Lucas said about how people aren't going to hate Andrew Ladd if he leaves. I think the reason they hated Evander Kane when he left is because the way he publicly said, or almost publicly said, that he wanted to leave Winnipeg, and how he didn't like Winnipeg, and how he didn't like the way Winnipeg was treating him, and the whole thing when at the start of the Jets in 2011, where Kane was walking out on restaurant bills, stuff like that. People didn't like Evander Kane because Evander Kane didn't like Winnipeg. So, and Andrew Ladd's gone on the record, on wax, saying that he really likes Winnipeg. So I don't think the people of Winnipeg would take it seriously if Andrew Ladd got traded or left. But so I think that would have to do with why people wouldn't cross Ladd names off their jerseys, because Ladd actually likes Winnipeg.
I agree. I think Andrew Ladd has left it pretty strong. If he was to get traded, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure fans would be excited about it, whoever we get in return and whatnot. But I don't think. And it's a completely different situation than Evander Kane. Absolutely.
I think people are just ready to move on. It's not Evander Kane we need to get him the hell out of here. With Andrew Ladd, it's okay. You know what? Thanks so much for your service, but I think we need to try something different.
It's because we're fueled by passion.
Don't forget. I think what Buffalo was hoping when they traded for Kane, that it was that he just didn't like Winnipeg, and that it was the city and the team and not the person. But what they're finding out is it is the person.
Well, they had nothing to lose.
Kane's a problem, right?
And they're bottom of the barrel.
Well, not necessarily, because I guess so. What they did trade a first-round pick and 2 pretty good players.
Just to
3 first-round picks and 2 good roster players.
Exactly.
Quickly add on that trade, like Joel Armia is turning out to be
huge.
He's already a Ross player. He looks great out there. So I don't think. I don't think you can argue that the Winnipeg Jets won that trade. I think Buffalo received 2 players that have clearly had some off-ice problems.
Injured for so long.
They've
had some off-ice problems. Bogosian. No one really knows what's going on with Zach Bogosian, but he's got some problems, whether it's partying and
whatever it is.
We don't want to speculate too much. We don't know, but there's rumors flying around.
I think the biggest issue with Evander Kane, he's a big city guy, and Winnipeg didn't fit his style, and I've never been to Buffalo.
Which is hilarious because he went to Buffalo.
Anybody who's been to Buffalo,
it's like the Winnipeg of the States.
Well, it's not very exciting. There's really not around.
The only way he's going to survive is he ends up in a place like Chicago or New York, where no one knows who he is, or even like say Tampa Bay, where he's going to be able to hide. He's going to be able to go out and party, and people aren't going to know who he is.
Yeah.
At least for a couple of years.
He needs a smaller hockey market, like
smaller hockey market,
He needs a smaller market where he can go party. He can do all
this stuff. The New York Islanders.
Go play for
where
Florida.
You live in New York and you can go party, and no one knows who you are.
Florida or Arizona or something like that. So
he's too much.
Everybody knows who the Jets are when they're in Winnipeg, and Buffalo's the same thing. Their fan base is crazy. Everybody knows every player, stuff like that. So
going from talking about Evander Kane and that whole thing, how he missed practice because of the NBA All-Star Game. Let's touch on All-Star games just for a bit. I know for every sport, it's kind of a big question mark. I personally don't think All-Star games are necessary. I think they're kind of useless. I think, they probably bring in a lot of money, but I think as a fan, someone who's played hockey, I don't think the NHL All-Star game has any value. This year, the format changed to the 3-on-3, the 4 teams. It was much more enjoyable to watch. But still, the numbers were down even from last year, which really doesn't make any sense. Just there's not a whole lot of interest, so I feel like they could wash away with it. Players don't really want to be there. You see players just opting out. Let's touch on every sport. Let's start with hockey, the NHL All-Star Game.
Lose
Taylor,
it, get lost.
I actually disagree.
I would disagree too.
Because,
let's talk about this.
I think it's terrible. I don't enjoy watching it or anything, but the NHL doesn't have a very big footprint in the United States. Over the half the revenue comes from the 7 Canadian teams. And so, doing something like that, doing an all-star game in the States, in the Southern United States, it brings awareness, it gets people out, it gets all the big stars there, and that's a huge thing for young kids. When we were young, if we ever got to see NHL stars come to Winnipeg, we'd be so excited about it. And even when the AHL hosted the All-Star Game in Winnipeg, it was actually a pretty big deal.
It was,
Like
A lot of
who-
people here attended that because I did.
I did.
That was
It
insane.
It was cool.
It was
The
cool.
exhibition games, Toronto and Arizona, or Phoenix back in the day.
Well, that's
Well,
what is that?
That's
It's kind of irrelevant, but what was that?
I'm seeing it as wording about my Leafs, that's all.
But Lucas, did you agree with
Yeah,
what
I think
Brendan
it has a
had to
huge,
say?
a huge.
I do agree, and I agree wholeheartedly, and I want to add
That's
something onto that.
Great.
Because,
Hey, go
okay,
right
so
ahead, man.
what's
It's an open floor.
open floor here? I'm going to ask the floor a question. We're going to open the floor to questions. Why?
Open the floor to answers.
Yeah, okay, well, we're going to get answers. Why do we pick All-Stars? Why do we care about the All-Star game? What's the point in the first place?
Show off the talent, but
Show off the talent, right? That's so I think that the format took a good spin this year because when they were playing 3-on-3, sure they weren't trying too hard. There wasn't a lot of physicality, as we expect, as we know from All-Star games.
well, there was
But
a fight, you know.
Well, there was the fight. There was a pretty
I think
tough
he did
tussle
pick up.
between
I think
two
in the last game,
heavyweights.
I
I totally disagree with you, Lucas.
Just
I think,
hold. I know it's a
Let
big
him-
tussle.
let him finish and then
Two
we'll-
heavyweights
I
there,
know.
pretty crazy. Anyways, when those guys were playing 3-on-3, just kind of sure it was kind of half-assed and whatever, but it looked like they were just playing like community center hockey to me. It looked just like they were having fun, and that was the whole point. Anyways,
So,
I'm not going to segue into another one right
I'll
now.
send it to you, Tyler. But to add on that, they added the $1 million.
So they weren't playing for
Right.
Oh,
nothing.
that's
Yeah.
true.
And so they weren't playing for nothing. I think that actually did make a difference. I think for Patrick Kane, another $90,000, big deal. The guy's making
For John
$10 million.
Scott?
But guys like John Scott, who maybe isn't an all-star, but who actually made the show. He
And
was
they
the
won.
show.
Yeah.
And they won.
He was.
So John
he-
Scott actually got it.
$90,000 to him. He's playing in the AHL right now. $90,000,
Yeah.
that doubles his salary this year. That's a
Yeah.
big deal. I don't know if he,
He
has a
has a
two-way
one-
or
he
he
has
has
a
a one-way.
one-way,
Okay,
so-
so he has a one-way.
What a
I
stupid
just
comment.
the effort.
Super uneducated. Super uneducated.
Okay, I was just gonna talk about the effort level in this All-Star game. Like, you watched the last period, or I guess the last 5 minutes when it was 1-0 in the final of that All-Star game in the 3-on-3 tournament. Like, those guys were playing some defense when they were 3-on-3. Like, you look at the last 2 minutes, they were almost laying down to block shots. They were going hard to pucks in their end. You know, and you look at other All-Star games like the NBA, which I know you have quite a few things to say about that.
We'll get to the NBA.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Jumping through the
But-
computer screen over
Yeah.
here.
But I think it I think it was a huge step up, and I think a lot of the other pro sports can take a page out of this book to try and make it a little bit more competitive, because really, other than the MLB where the All-Star game is meant for the
Meaningful, yeah.
home field,
Which
but
is stupid.
For people,
Yeah.
people that don't know this, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, the winning conference gets home field advantage in the World Series. There's incentive.
That's a
there.
good
That's a
incentive.
huge advantage.
But-
Is it fair to the team that makes it to the World Series and doesn't get home field advantage because their All-Star team lost? I don't think so, but it does give incentive. It makes the game a little more entertaining.
yeah, how many All-Stars in that are on non-playoff teams?
Exactly, yeah.
So I mean,
Hugh,
they at least play for something, but
Yeah. Hugh, do you have something you want to add on the NHL All-Star Game before we move on to the NBA All-Star Game?
No, not really. I think you guys covered most of it.
well, you've got lots to say, I'm sure, about the NBA. One last thing that I want to add about the NHL All-Star Game is, Brendan, just going back to you, I agree with what you're saying, that it is good, that it does bring a market to America, and that's a lot of money is down there, a lot of population, and trying to make hockey a bigger deal down there. What I don't like about it, and just because I'm not old school, but I'm a traditionalist when it comes to hockey, and I think hockey's been played a certain way, and I would go against it changing. The only way you can attract American fans, and Gary Bettman's trying to do this with the NHL, and it's the same thing with trying to score more goals, make the nets bigger, goalies smaller. American fans just want pucks to go in the net, and when they the only way they can enjoy a hockey game, it seems, is if pucks are going in the net. And for a person that loves the game, I feel like there's so much more to the game, and I hope the game doesn't turn into just basketball where it's going back and forth, because that's a different
Football.
sport. Basketball, football, that's what they want. They want it to be more goals, and so I find, and it's successful, I agree, because make it 3-on-3, make it a ton of goals, make it in Nashville where it's unique and it's an American.
it was a good event in Nashville. They put
ton of
on a
money,
show.
Ton of airtime for hockey for American fans, but as a hockey fan, a traditionalist hockey fan, I feel like it's not necessarily good for the game itself. It's good for the business side of the game, but the game itself is probably not good.
Well, and if America really had it their way, I think they would have the scoring of basketball with the physicality of football.
Yeah, guys
That's
just
what they would
running into
want.
each other, scoring every second,
Yeah.
so they could just cheer barbarically in the crowd.
Yeah.
That might be really insulting to if any Americans ever hear this.
I was just gonna say that's not
That's not
that's not
every
all
view,
Americans. That
but-
is more like
just a
new to the game.
Yeah.
Americans,
Yeah.
where they're
That's what
used to
I
different
mean. I
kind of
don't
sports.
want new to the. I don't think there's a way, and I wish there was a way to get new American fans to enjoy hockey the way it's always been played. But the way that we're showing it off is a high-scoring game, and so they watch this 3-on-2, think, "Wow, this is sweet." There's goals back and forth, and then they go watch a game that finishes 1-0 in overtime,
The finale,
which
yeah.
we think is an amazing game because it was tight defense,
Nice saves in
some
that.
good saves, some good chances both ways, an exciting game. But to them, it's there's only one goal. It
Yeah.
sucked.
And also for the All-Star game, obviously everyone here loved the John Scott story.
Oh yeah.
You said
You can really tell Adam loved it.
I really did.
you said like the numbers were down this year, and that's, I mean, to me that seems weird because you think of like with John Scott playing in the game,
You'd think
you
that they
would think
would've
numbers
gone-
would
Let me
be
ask
up.
a question. Who here watched the game?
I
watched
did.
it.
You're the only one who did.
Alright, I'll let you right now.
I watched it. I actually enjoyed
No,
it.
but
It was
good.
awesome.
No, but what I'm saying is that, like, yeah, John Scott playing the game, you would think that there would be more viewers, but the fact that there were less, like, what, next year? Like, so
I don't
people
think
would
it
come back,
really
'cause some
matters
people
to
watch.
viewers though.
I think
It's more about the
I know.
revenue.
I know. I'm saying,
Yeah,
but like
how
the
much-
viewing was down, and you think people won't watch it next year because John Scott's not going to be in it, most likely.
Most
and
likely,
people
yeah.
watched it specifically.
Who knows?
for-
Fans might
Most
bring it
likely,
back.
Well, like probably.
I hope he's not. I
Like,
think,
he
I
watched
think it would be a little weird
Yeah,
if they brought
but-
back that.
Yeah, but he watched it. Most people watched it just for John Scott. If he's
Yeah,
not in it,
That's true.
like they're probably going to
All
lose
right,
more
so-
viewers.
We
It's on the decline, I think.
we are
We love hockey.
a hockey, the NHL All-Star game. We're on the fence. Some guys think we should just get rid of it entirely. Some guys think we should keep it. I'm kind of in the middle. I think there's good parts and bad parts about it. Anyways, the NBA All-Star game. Hugh, I'm going to let you start this one off. I didn't watch any of it. I saw the highlights of the skills competition.
That
I
dunk.
thought that was awesome. The slam dunks, like that was cool. I'm not a huge basketball fan myself, but I turned on the game for about 5 minutes, and I don't think I saw one person take one hard step in any direction, and it was just a basket every 5 seconds, and no one clearly cared. Hugh, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, you're totally right. You look at the actual All-Star game that was played, a record 369 total points were scored. So
Hard D.
there's that, and also I saw a stat. It was something about 140 3-point shots were taken in that game. 140 3-point shots. So again,
How many of those were Steph?
Yeah, no kidding. Like you said, Adam, there was no defense played in the game, and as far as the competition, like skills competition goes, people were talking about how it's going down and the dunk contest isn't as good. People only want to see the 3-point shootout on certain years, and this year they want to see it because of Steph. Obviously, this year the dunk contest ended up being really good because we had two solid dunkers, Eric Gordon and Zach LaVine, go off and have a battle for the ages.
He got robbed, by the way.
Yeah. A side note, that jump where he basically sat down over the mascot
Was sick.
That was unbelievable.
that was
Vince
scored
Carter
bronze in the 2012 Olympics for a high jump, just so you know.
Impressive.
Yes, but to be fair, he
Fun
also
fact.
did push off the ball to get a little bit extra height because he's
That's
pushing
fair.
it off.
Okay.
I'm just saying, it was extremely
Alright.
impressive,
Boo.
but he wouldn't have beat it.
Still, though, it was.
It was sick. It was sick. Sorry, go ahead.
Just also, like, it really made a difference, I think, for me, because I always watch the NBA All-Star Game. I'm always watching Saturday night and Sunday night. But to be actually in the city and experience the buzz that was going on, considering that I go to school downtown, like, I was literally just walking around down Union Station where the Air Canada Center is and sort of just experiencing all of the kind of hoopla that was going on. It was really, really cool. And considering that the NBA is more of a star-driven league than anything else, because you can give the guy to one ball, you can give the ball to one guy. The ball to one guy at the end of the game, and he can win the game for you. And he's a hero. It just made all the stars that were coming to Toronto that much more exciting. So, I mean, people can say the All-Star game that they play no defense is boring, but I'll tell you what, it didn't feel like that way to Toronto. It sure felt like it was the greatest thing that ever happened in the city, because the basketball market that's emerging in Toronto, it's booming. It's booming like crazy. So to be able to have something like the NBA All-Star Game come to the city was absolutely outstanding. So people can hate the game all they want. People can be annoyed by the dunk contest and how all the dunks are the same, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? it sure didn't feel that way when you were inside the city. I'll tell you what, that's for sure.
It was because of Drake. That's the only reason.
No, you know what? I think it's actually almost. I find it impossible
Aubrey.
to disagree with you on that because it is good for the game of basketball. Whether or not we have grown up being fans of basketball, that's not the question. The question is it a good thing for basketball? And I think it clearly shows it was with the celebrities and everything being in Toronto and all that. So
it's a different beast. It's a different sport. Right?
What's that?
That's the big deal. It's a different, like you said, because I said before, the whole point in having the All-Star games is we want to showcase talent, right? And NBA is a lot about flash, about style, when guys want to break away. I mean, it's kind of the same as the NHL, but when
a different
when they
sport.
get a steal,
It's a
I mean,
different sport.
it's just, people just love the glam of the NBA so much, and the All-Star game is a good way to show that off, and I don't know. I think that the All-Star format of the NBA is just probably the best. Of the four major North American sports, NBA definitely has the All-Star game ahead of the curve for sure.
I mean, what was great about it being in Toronto was just that some players don't understand how big basketball is in Canada. So the fact that guys, big stars like Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Steph Curry, all those guys, they get to see what the excitement of basketball is like in Canada. And I think that you can tell in all the interviews that they said that they were all very excited about how many fans were coming out to see them and whatnot. So it really got a chance to let the United States know that, Toronto and all of Canada is excited about basketball, and the it helps that the Raptors are a good team right now, but like the All-Star game was great for the city, that's for sure.
and how fitting that it was absolutely freezing in Toronto and we
Yeah.
all got to get a little taste. And they all probably just think Canada's a horrible place to live now. I think that's just fitting. That's what they think of. That's what Americans think of Canadians. That's what they think. We live in igloos and stuff. So
That's what
it's
the Black
hilarious,
Mamba said. He said it's cold. That was his
It was
first
like
comment, man.
minus 17 Celsius here, and I swear to God, it had not been colder than like -7 until then.
Yeah.
So I was absolutely shocked by that.
I think it's
But
hilarious. How do you wanna
I
ask-
do have to agree with you, Hugh, by showing the U.S. how big of a market that Toronto and especially Canada is, because there is only the Toronto Raptors in Canada as far as the NBA goes. And,
Exactly.
I don't know how many times I've seen, because we live in Winnipeg, obviously, and I don't know how many times I've seen We the North hat or Raptors clothing or whatever, and people that
Definitely.
genuinely care
Yeah.
about the Raptors' success.
Yeah.
I mean, just dudes at my school, man. I mean, it is absolutely jam-packed with Raptor gear. Not only just the school, but just walking down the street, being on the subway, stuff like that. It's absolutely packed with
Yeah.
Raptor stuff. I mean, the city is just buzzing about. The Leafs suck right now, and that helps the Raptors too. But just the city is absolutely buzzing with Raptor pride right now. It's #We the North.
Brendan, you got one last thing you want to add about the NBA before we move on?
Taylor's going to say something first. Tyler.
Tyler.
Tyler, who's it gonna be?
Just before Brendan chimes in here, I just wanted to say, to touch on the All-Star game, as much as I, a casual basketball fan, enjoy seeing the big dunks, I probably enjoy seeing, LeBron James getting stuffed at the hoop more than anything else. So,
And that was missing from the All-Star game,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. I don't know how the NBA works. I know obviously they created a lot of awareness, and obviously with all the celebrities and everything that were there, it was a big success. But there would be nice to see some defense and have some guys who are more focused on defense in that All-Star game just based on those facts. Obviously you don't want someone there just contesting shots and putting up rebounds, but Brendan, I know you have something here.
Well, yeah,
for this.
I was just going to briefly talk about, I don't know when Toronto was given or awarded the All-Star game, what year it was, but it literally could not have come at a better time for Canada as a whole, because there's been so much attention in the last couple of years for Toronto, for the Raptors, because they have actually made the playoffs. But, Messiah Jury or whatever his name is, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, but it couldn't have been better. And to spread the game, and it's the same thing with the NHL going down south for All-Star games. It's the same thing coming up north. It spreads the game. It's so popular now, and the NBA did a really great thing. And I actually did watch the game. I hate basketball. I did watch some of the game. I would have obviously liked to see a little bit more defense, but it was pretty entertaining, and it's a show, right? It's for the fans, and I think the NBA actually does it better than any other league, just because of the personalities they have in the league. Now, I don't necessarily agree with those personalities.
I think it's safe to say that it's probably the best format. Now I know.
Now
Moving
the
on,
worst.
I think we could all agree with the worst. Taylor, you wanna lead
What
us
is
into
the
what we
worst
think is
All-Star
probably the
game?
worst format and the most pointless All-Star game out there?
Oh, Jesus. Let's not even talk about the NFL All-Star game. Who watched it? It already passed. No one even knew.
I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in my life.
I don't know. I've never watched a Pro Bowl in my life. I watch a lot of football. I love the NFL. NFL is a game that is
Hitting.
95%
Yeah.
of the enjoyment of watching a football game is the contact. It's a contact sport.
And
an
the
All-Star game at
teamwork.
the end of the season, right before your summer, if you're an NFL football player,
If you're
why would
hurt,
you want to go all out in that
Yeah.
game and get injured?
Yeah.
Then your whole summer's and on top of that, they're not guaranteed money with their
No,
contracts.
they
So they
aren't.
get hurt. That could really.
And the amount of players that actually decided not to go to
Oh,
the Pro
it's a
Bowl this
huge
year is
number.
unbelievable.
Oh my God.
Little injuries, like finger injury, like just little injuries, just people just don't go to
Well,
the Pro Bowl.
that's the
And they don't miss a game like the NHL because
You can't
there's
afford
only
to, yeah.
16 games. You can't take away one game.
So then you have that, and then you have the fact that the Super Bowl is still to be played. So all the Pro Bowlers playing on Super Bowl teams aren't involved in the Pro Bowl. Who goes to the Pro Bowl? It's an All-Star game.
I saw there were barely any fans in the stands.
It wasn't sold out. Are there even All-Stars there?
There was-
You go All-Star players, or is it just
Eli Manning was
Anyway-
second overall pick. In
I'm
the Pro
a
Bowl.
Vikings fan. I'm a Vikings fan, but
Teddy
Bridgewater
I
was
don't
there.
think he's an All-Star. He's a good quarterback, but is he an All-Star
They
quarterback?
said like, I don't know if it was 50 or 60 of people who got invited were either in the Super Bowl or declined
Yeah.
to go to the Pro Bowl.
They had
So
they offered over 125 or something.
And so essentially you had second and third stringers.
And you look at it, it's literally in Hawaii. Like, what a beautiful trip to go down. And you think if it was at all, even like the slightest bit entertaining, people would want to go. But like you said, there's no one there. No one goes to watch the game.
Well, when I was talking about NHL and how they should cancel All-Star game, I maybe, over-exaggerated a bit, but no, NFL All-Star game, like, this
Yeah,
is
I think they
pointless.
could do
It's
that.
a waste of money. Did they make money off it? I
Probably
doubt it.
not.
They probably lost money.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know if anyone.
Like, I don't know what the
quickly look up
NFL...
the
Well, I
numbers
can't
on
imagine
that,
they
but-
lost money because the
okay.
TV deal. But if I,
Okay,
I
well,
think,
let's
I'm
talk-
serious.
Point. No, there's no way
Yeah,
they're losing money or they wouldn't
no,
do it.
but still,
let's talk
Roger
about the...
Goodell wouldn't do anything that cost him money.
The one thing I would say about this is like I can't believe I'm saying this. The NFL should take a page out of the CFL book. They don't have obviously an All-Star game because first of all, it'd be terrible.
if any people
Super
from
Bowl.
America are listening, the CFL is the league of football up here.
Yeah.
And they
Canadian
have
football
it plays on ESPN3 sometimes. But it's so terrible. I think you actually get bonuses if you make. I think you
Like
get
an all-star
Yeah.
lineup.
Yeah, you get announced
Like an
to
award.
a team,
It's
but
like
you
an
don't.
award, yeah.
You don't get to
Yeah,
play the
okay,
game.
yeah.
And I think for football especially, like there's no point of having another game. People don't want to. The fans don't care. And the CFL especially would not make any money off it, whereas the NFL would. But there's no need for it. And if you're having it between the semifinals and the finals for your league, like it's pointless.
The prime jewel of sports in
Yeah.
North America is the next week. People don't care about the
Yeah.
Pro Bowl. People are, instead of watching the Pro Bowl, are literally watching videos on people talking about the same thing they were talking about already for 1 week about the Super Bowl that's coming up. People don't care about this Pro Bowl. It's
What I think a good idea would be is just continue what they do throughout high school and college football. Just name your all-stars.
Name your all-stars.
Like, cause what they
Give
do
them
in
an
high,
award, plaque or
the
something.
high
Name
school
the
they
first
do what
all-star.
like all
Well, they
conference,
actually-
all division, then all state.
Yeah.
Are like the highest.
But they also have for American football, they do have like an all-star like nationwide game. But
But that's for
just
scouting.
scouting.
Yeah.
The one thing that I did hear, which was kind of an interesting argument for why they should keep it or how they could change the game, is they'd have they'd name their all-star team, but they'd only play, I think it was 7-on-7, and it'd be flag football, and that's kind of interesting because there wouldn't be any contact, but people would. The theory would be that people would actually try a little bit harder to
Probably,
grab the
yeah.
flag
Showcase
and
the
then,
skill,
exactly,
right?
and then you
Whole
still see
point.
the skill, and you see everything other than the contact, and the players don't want to have any contact because the average length of a player in a league is only 3 years anyways, and again, we said that there's no guaranteed money for the most part. Like, there's no need for the players to be in that.
So to conclude, All-Star games in general, the NBA, we would all agree that it's good for the game. The NHL Could go either way.
Good for the States.
You're good for
The
the
NFL,
league. Good
the
for the
NFL,
league.
I just read now. We're running out of time, but I have one last topic that I want to introduce. I wish we had a little more time to discuss on this one. We could even bring this up next time. This could go on for a long time. The question is Canadian hockey on the decline? Are we falling behind? What exactly is going on? I'm just going to list off a few facts before I open, and then we can all just kind of express our opinions on this. As of today, all 7 Canadian franchises are out of the playoffs. If they were to start tomorrow, not one Canadian team. Not that that really reflects Canadian hockey itself, but that's something.
Yeah.
This year in the World Juniors, which is the future of our
Play it,
Canadian
yeah.
hockey, we didn't even medal. We were off. We all watched. We were awful.
What are the 4 of the last
We have a gold medal last year. I have the numbers here. We have 1 in the last 6 years, I think it is. We went on a 5 gold medals in a row run from 2005 to 2009. That was incredible, and then you can see that generation is who's playing in our Olympics now, and that's why we're winning gold medals at the Olympics. Just to quickly point out, Finland won the gold medal this year at the World Juniors. There's 75,000 hockey players in Finland. Of that 75,000, 39 are under the age of 20, so eligible for that tournament. In Canada, we have 721,000 active players, and 518,000 of those players are under 20 eligible. So 518 compared to 39,000. Should we not be steamrolling? It's our sport.
Well, I think we kind of should. And also, like you mentioned, the younger players. This year might be the first year in a while that a Canadian doesn't even get drafted in the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. They're the highest
there's
ranked
Americans,
players.
there's Matthew Kachuk, and then there's
Finns.
the 2 Finns.
That's only 4.
Pulley, RV, and Lang.
Okay, I think there's
Simple
a lot.
math here, bro.
The highest ranked.
There's a few people from Russia.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
Craig Button's midterm
Nah.
rank is the highest rank. It was like 8th overall.
yeah. So there's a chance that Canadian might not even be drafted in the top 10 in this year's draft.
Taylor, you
When you
want
think
to
about it.
put your opinion on this? We'll go around
Well,
just everyone can put their opinion in.
I couldn't tell you. I don't watch that much junior hockey, but
But those
I don't-
statistics themselves.
Yeah, that it kind of
It's
it baffles
alarming.
you.
It's
Yeah,
alarming.
it baffles
Yeah,
you.
it
You don't
doesn't
know
make
why.
sense.
After the World Juniors, a lot of people were complaining about was it management? Like, they said don't blame it on the players. It was
They're
management.
blaming
but I
the-
don't know. Like,
They're blaming.
The picking process.
They're not. But it's not even that. They're blaming minor hockey and the coaching and I think what they're saying is it's the old school mentality that we have and that it's work hard, dump pucks in, hit guys. Whereas Europeans are playing like a skill style game, and it's just it seems
Speed,
that that's
yeah.
more successful now than our old school style. So
well, correct me if I'm wrong, but past years you've seen our Canadian teams just always been hitting,
and it works.
I don't think did we see any that much hitting this year? I don't think
It's
we
just
did.
I think that part of the game that
it's-
era of the game is leaving, and I think we're behind the 8 ball and adjusting to the new era.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there was a time when that was the way it was played, and we dominated. We ran guys over, but now teams are finding a way to like the way penalties are being. It's not working as well, and we're falling behind with the fast-paced skill game. Tyler, you want to add on that?
Well, I think it's bigger than just that. I think it's the way that we bring up the younger generation. Like, I'm talking when you're 8 through 10. When you start to play in the tiered level of hockey, you usually have 1 or 2 kids that are way better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then, especially with the coaching there, it's the parent coaches who want their kid to win.
Yeah.
So they just say, here, give these 2 kids the puck so they can go out and score. I mean, I know I have coached hockey for 5 years now. Brendan, you have coached hockey for 3. And so we've seen it a little bit with the different skill level of kids when you go into a 11 or 12 or 13-year-old team. Just you can see the major skill difference. And I mean, obviously, when you have less kids like Finland or Russia or stuff like that, you can pool all together the absolute superstars and put them on a super team. You know, in Canada, it's a little difficult with just the pure number of kids, but we just really need to take a step back and look at how we bring up the
Starts
kids.
at a younger age. I
Yeah,
think.
exactly. You can't look at it as the World Junior team when you're 18 to 20 years old, because it's...
Lucas, did you want to?
I just think I don't know. It's just game's getting too systematic in my opinion. I think that these kids just got to play.
I agree.
They gotta be led a little more free. They're being coached too hard at too young of an age, and I think that other countries are straight up more creative on the ice than Canada is.
Creativeness is a huge thing. I think
That's a deciding factor
for a kid
me.
learning the game, and I know for myself learning the game. I learned the game at an outdoor rink, a couple houses down from mine. Like, you learn when you're having fun, being creative. But when you have a 7-year-old kid, you're yelling and screaming at him on the ice to do exactly what you
Yeah.
want them to do. It takes away the creativeness, and that's the way in Canada. And I find that that's the way it's brought up. Like it's just constantly. Hugh, you want to add something on that?
Well, I mean, just that. One interesting stat that I found was that the NHL, the AHL, the ECHL, the OHL, the QMJHL, the NCAA, and the Swedish Hockey League, all their top scorers are American. So the fact that there's not
Really?
one Canadian in all of those leagues that isn't leading in scoring, I think is very interesting and very telling to not only how it's affecting junior hockey, but professional hockey.
I agree, and you those stats are pretty positive, but you have to keep in mind Connor McDavid is the best hockey player in the world right now. Sidney Crosby's on an absolute tear. Those Canadian players are still phenomenal, but those stats are scary. But American hockey and like
he will be the best in the world to you, and like give him a few years, McDavid will be unbelievable.
I think you could almost argue that he's he's knocking on the door. He is that good.
He is.
I don't think anyone can argue that.
Canada still has like if you look at the best players in the world in every position, I think Canada still
in
takes
the
that.
NHL right now, but we're talking about the future.
The
They're older
overall
now.
consensus,
Future.
the overall feel for Canadian, and I've seen in my experiences just playing like junior hockey and people I've known through hockey and everything, the American programs just seem to be 10 steps ahead of the Canadian programs as far as their way of developing they find the best players in their country at age 15, 16, and they turn them into professionals. By the time they're 18, 19 years old, they're professionals. You see Seth Jones, Jacob Trouba, like those guys are just a step ahead of the Canadian players that are that age. They just, whatever it is the programs are in, that U.S. developmental program is way better than anything Canada and Hockey Canada has to offer right now, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, we have the best junior leagues, the Western Hockey League, the Ontario Hockey League, those are the best leagues, but there's obviously something wrong. I don't know if it's the coaching or if there's something wrong. Brendan, you want to add on that?
I personally think it is the coaching. There's obviously other problems like demographics and just the concentration of population within Canada because it's so widespread compared to the United States where it's mostly on the east and west coast. But going back to coaching, like I'm coaching right now, 13 AA team, and like I know I've played hockey. I know what I'm talking about for the most part. But seeing some of the other coaches that I've coached against, it's terrible. Like they really don't understand the game, and lots of them are over the age of 45 to 50. So there again, you go back to the old school.
Things have changed. The game's changed.
And like the big problem within Canada, I think, is that we don't have very many young coaches. And I think one way to maybe change the way coaching is done in Canada is to have like a mandatory, like if you play junior hockey, you should have to coach at some point in the next X number of years, or do something like that, because it is a major problem. And going back to the NHL, it's the first time ever that the NHL has not had over 50% of their players be Canadian. And I personally think that's an absolute great thing for
the
hockey
game itself.
For
the game itself,
yeah.
For hockey itself, it is a great thing.
It's awesome.
It's amazing that it's not just that it's becoming a worldwide thing.
And that's really great. But going into development and stuff, like coaching is not where it needs to be. Frick, you can go on to, if you want to be a coach in Manitoba, you have to go to Sport Manitoba, Hockey Manitoba. You have to take an online course, and then all of a sudden you're a coach.
You could literally be, be someone who's never played the game, no experience in the game, but you get your certification, which any Joe Blow on the street can get, and you can coach a high-level hockey team. And I think a big problem, my experiences in minor hockey coming up through AA, AAA here in Winnipeg, there's no incentive for coaches. It's a huge commitment.
Totally.
It's a huge commitment for coach. If you were to throw in some money, if you were to make it an incentive, you get some, but not enough to make it enticing to want to actually put in that time.
Yeah.
If you actually made it worth their while, the people that actually understand the game and are good coaches will want to do it. If there's the American programs, those guys are making a living and they're focused on strictly hockey. So,
but to just counter that, like I don't think you can do that. Hockey in Canada is so expensive. You look at Winnipeg alone; it's over $200 just for an hour of ice.
Yeah.
Where if you go to Finland, because we're talking about Finland, I think for an hour and a half of ice, the stat that I heard was $35 an hour. For an hour and a half.
That's like,
so like
in Canadian dollars.
Yeah, that would be what it would transfer
that.
into Canadian dollars. So when you see that, you can have way more practice, you can have way more ice for people, obviously because they have less players. And it just becomes a fact that it's too expensive for some people to even play. Whereas in other countries, it's completely accessible to them. Well, not completely, but for the most part, almost anybody can play. But just playing on, like, for the team that I coach this year, it's over $2,000 to play. So if you have 2 kids and you're playing at the second tier right now, because there's a AAA league, which is over $5,000, that's a ton of money to actually spend on your kid. And then obviously you're going to want your kid to get everything you get, to be able to get out of it. But there's also 16 other kids that have the same view, their parents have the same view. So it's almost impossible right now for Canada to get a good coaching and development program in, because it's so popular of a game in Canada. There's just almost no way.
We could go on for hours. I mean, I think it's safe to say that Canada's still a dominant force in hockey. Whether we're regressing or not, we'll see as time goes on. But Austin has one last thing, and then we'll wrap it up.
One last thing I wanted to point out is in Canadian hockey, they do play against players their own age, but in the States for college, and in Finland and Sweden and Russia and all them, they do play against no, not adults, but players. So maybe that affects
they have less players.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, it's almost not possible.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's it for time. That's all we got for time. That's a bunch of no-name guys talking about sports.
All right, closing points. Go Capitals.
All-star games are stupid, and Evander Kane's a loser.
Kane is a loser. Let's go Kings.
It's been a pleasure. I love it. It's been a good time.
You can't even give a shameless plug to your beloved Toronto.
No, they got nothing going for them right now, so I love
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on, Hugh.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh.
Hugh, what do you got to say?
I just think Artemi Panarin's going to win the Calder Trophy this year, no matter how good Connor McDavid is.
What about the Ghost, Gosh Sperry? Anyways,
Okay,
we'll leave that for next time.
He's unbelievable.
Brendan, one last cliffhanger.
There's big news in the curling world today. They banned hair brooms, which is crazy. I'm a huge curler. Nobody else gives a shit about that. So.
I'm next time on the No Name Guys.
We'll talk about curling if next time. Thanks for listening. If anybody has made it this far, which is highly unlikely.